The galaxy was wide, full of shining empires and ancient races. Some species had ruled the stars for thousands of years. They had fleets of warships, weapons that could destroy moons, and cities floating on gas giants. Humanity, compared to them, was small and weak. Humans were new to the galaxy. Their ships were small, their colonies were poor, and their technology looked simple to the older races. To the Galactic Empire, humans were nothing but a joke. They said humanity was too young, too weak, too foolish to ever matter. When the Empire decided to reward Earth for joining the Council of Civilizations, they laughed while handing over giant piles of old, broken machines. The reward was not a gift of honor. It was an insult. They gave humanity scrap, rusting steel, cracked hulls, shattered engines, twisted pieces of ships destroyed in old wars. Mountains of metal dumped on human stations and moons. The Empire said it was tribute, but everyone knew the truth. It was trash. A message to humanity. This is all you are worth. The other alien delegates sneered and whispered. Some laughed openly in the council halls. One tall reptilian ambassador said, "Let us see what the humans do with garbage. Maybe they will build a playground." Another added, "No, humans love fire. They will melt it and make toys for their children." But when the scrap arrived, humans did not laugh. They did not cry. They did not bow their heads in shame. They looked at the piles of broken war machines, and something sparked in their eyes. Something the other races did not understand. Where others saw trash, humanity saw possibility. On Mars, engineers walked through fields of old armor plates, running their hands across the scars of alien weapons. In orbit above Titan, welders lit their torches and began cutting, reshaping, fitting the pieces together. On asteroids, miners stripped out metals and reforged them into beams, frames, and shells. The galaxy watched, confused. "What are the humans doing?" they asked. No one could give an answer. Spies tried to slip into human shipyards. They returned only with strange stories. Giant hulls, hidden under dark tarps, workers singing as they worked 20 hours a day, blueprints burned before anyone outside could see them. Humans guarded their secret like a treasure. At first, the aliens thought it was harmless. "They are fools," said the reptilian ambassador. "No ship built from junk can ever fly." But whispers began to spread. A freighter captain claimed he saw a massive shadow drifting near the asteroid belt. A patrol ship swore it picked up a power reading stronger than anything on Earth before vanishing. The rumors grew. Humanity was building something big, something that was not supposed to exist. Still, the Empire laughed. "They build from garbage," one emperor said, raising his jeweled hand. "And garbage will always remain garbage." But humanity remembered. They remembered every insult. They remembered every laugh. And piece by piece, bolt by bolt, weld by weld, they worked in silence. The gift of scrap had become their test. And they would not fail. One night above the dark side of the moon, a group of young engineers stood on a platform, staring at the massive structure rising before them. It stretched so far that their eyes could not see the end. It was ugly, scarred, uneven, built from hundreds of alien designs smashed together. But it was strong, stronger than anything they had ever touched. One of the engineers whispered, "If they wanted to break us, they should not have given us this." Another replied, "They gave us the bones of their dead warships. We will make them fear their own ghosts." And far away, in the endless black of space, the sound of engines testing echoed. It was low, deep, like the growl of something alive, something that should not exist. The galaxy still thought humanity was weak, but in the shadows, a monster was being born, a warship unlike anything the stars had ever seen. The Empire thought they had humiliated humanity. They believed the scrap would rot in human hands, piled high on forgotten moons and drifting stations. But the Empire did not understand the human spirit. Where others gave up, humans built. Where others saw endings, humans saw beginnings. Hidden in the shadows of asteroid belts and frozen moons, humanity began its great work. The scrap was melted down, reforged, and reborn in secret places the Empire never bothered to search. These shipyards were not the shining, perfect docks of the old races. They were ugly, filled with smoke, sparks, and the constant pounding of hammers. Yet in that chaos, something mighty was taking shape. Engineers worked without rest. Mechanics slept on cold floors beside broken engines. Welders burned their hands but kept their torches lit. Every man and woman who touched that metal felt the same fire inside. We will not be mocked. We will not be broken. On the mining world of Ceres, massive hangars were hollowed into the rock. Inside, teams worked day and night, piecing together parts that never belonged to each other. Alien armor from one war was fused with human steel. Engines from 3 different species were forced into one frame. At first it seemed impossible. Nothing matched, nothing fit. But humans made it fit. One old mechanic laughed as he tightened a bolt. "It does not need to be pretty," he said. "It only needs to fly, and when it flies, they will learn." The design was not written in neat alien codes. It was not drawn by supercomputers or approved by high councils. It was built by human hands, guided by instinct, stubbornness, and a hunger to prove themselves. Every problem they faced only pushed them harder. When a reactor failed, they built a better one. When the engines tore apart, they welded them again, stronger. When the armor cracked, they added more, layer upon layer, until the ship became a wall of iron and fury. But the true strength was not in the metal. It was in the people. Pilots trained in silence, flying small ships in dangerous drills, preparing for the day they would guide the monster through battle. Soldiers practiced in dark tunnels, waiting for the chance to stand where no human had stood before. Scientists risked their lives testing weapons so powerful that a single mistake could end them all. The galaxy heard whispers, but no one could confirm the truth. The Empire sent spies, but none returned. Some vanished into the black. Others came back broken, muttering only one phrase: "The humans are building a nightmare." In the Galactic Council, nervous voices began to rise. "Perhaps we gave them too much," said one ambassador. "Perhaps their madness has a purpose, but the leaders of the Empire silenced them. They are fools. A scrap ship cannot stand against a fleet." Still, unease spread, and then the first test shook the stars. Deep in the asteroid field near Jupiter, humanity powered the engines. A roar thundered through the void, strong enough to crack nearby rocks into dust. Light spread across the hull, hundreds of systems blinking alive at once. Alien parts, once broken and forgotten, now worked together under human control. The ship moved forward, heavy yet unstoppable. The test was not broadcast, but those nearby felt it. A small freighter caught sight of the shadow, larger than any battleship it had ever seen. The pilot swore he saw fire in its eyes, massive weapon ports glowing red like the breath of a beast. His ship barely escaped before the engine's wake hurled him across space. When he told his story, no one believed him. But fear grew. The humans called the project Juggernaut. They whispered its name with pride, but also with awe. Even they could feel its presence, as if the ship itself carried the anger of their entire species. On Earth, a council of human leaders gathered in secret. They looked at the reports, the progress, the weapon tests. Some were afraid. "If we finish this, we will invite war," one of them said. But an old admiral shook his head. "War is already here. The galaxy already decided we were weak. This ship will change that." And so the work continued. From the outside, the Empire only saw silence. Human colonies went quiet. Their shipyards closed to alien eyes. Their fleets stopped moving. The Empire thought humanity was shrinking back in fear. They were wrong. In the dark, the forge burned hotter than ever. Sparks lit the void. The monster was growing piece by piece, heartbeat by heartbeat. Humanity was no longer building a ship. They were building a warning. And when the day came, when the Juggernaut left its hiding place, the galaxy would never laugh again. The galaxy believed it was safe. The Empire's fleet still filled the stars, their warships polished, perfect, and countless. To them, humanity remained a child race struggling in silence. They did not see what was happening in the shadows of the asteroid fields, in the dark caverns of forgotten moons. They did not see the monster growing, But one night in the endless black, the silence broke. It began with a hum, low and deep, echoing through the void, like the heartbeat of a giant. Engineers in heavy suits stood along the hull, watching as lights flickered to life across the ship's surface. At first, only one, then 10, then hundreds, tiny stars glowing on metal that had once been nothing but scrap. Inside the control deck, a captain sat in the command chair, hands trembling slightly as he gave the order. Power it! The Juggernaut awoke. Engines that once belonged to 3 different alien species now roared together as one. The sound was not smooth. It was rough, uneven, like the growl of a beast that had never been tamed. Yet it worked. The ship moved forward, slow at first, then faster, until the entire cavern shook. Welders, mechanics, and pilots stood in silence, staring at what they had made. It was ugly. Its armor was patchwork, scarred with burns from old battles. Its shape was uneven, as if carved by chaos itself. But it was alive, and its presence filled the air like thunder. A young engineer whispered, "It should not fly." An older one replied, voice steady, "And yet it does." As the Juggernaut left the asteroid dock, its shadow swallowed everything. Smaller ships scattered like insects before it. When its engines flared, the stars themselves seemed to dim. The first test was a weapon trial. They had built cannons from melted enemy parts, grafted plasma coils into human frames, and lined the hull with railguns that could fire shards of metal at speeds no one thought possible. The captain's voice was calm. "Target the dead moon." Coordinates locked. The weapons hummed, charging. Energy poured through lines that had been welded and re-welded 100 times. Sparks danced across the deck. For a moment, the crew feared it would all collapse. Then the cannon fired. The void lit up as a beam of raw energy ripped through space, striking the barren moon. There was no sound, but the explosion shook their bones. Rock shattered, dust billowed, and the surface cracked open like a broken egg. What had once been a silent, lifeless world was now a storm of fire and stone. The crew stared. No alien weapon had ever burned so bright in human hands. On Earth, the report was sent in silence. Leaders read the data with wide eyes. Some whispered that humanity had gone too far. Others whispered that they had gone just far enough. But the test could not remain hidden. The shock waves of the blast rippled across the system, and alien sensors picked them up. Within days, rumors spread. The humans destroyed a moon. The humans built something unnatural. The Empire laughed again, but the laughter was weaker now. "They cannot build such a thing," one ruler said. "If they had, it would fall apart after one battle." Yet in the shadows of their halls, fear grew. The Juggernaut continued its trials. It tore through simulated fleets, weapons firing in storms of fire and steel. Its engines pushed it faster than any believed possible for such a massive vessel. Pilots tested maneuvers no alien captain would dare attempt. The ship groaned and screamed as if alive, but it held, and with every test, the humans grew bolder. In secret, a message was whispered through human colonies. "The day is coming. The Juggernaut will rise, and the stars will know our name." Alien spies risked everything to learn the truth. One managed to send a final image before vanishing. The image showed only a dark silhouette, a warship larger than any battleship in the galaxy, its hull glowing red as if forged in fire. The Galactic Council panicked. Emergency meetings were called. Debates erupted. "We must act now," some cried. "We must destroy them before the monster grows." Others shook their heads in fear. What if the stories are true? What if the humans already finished it? But humanity did not care about their debates. Humanity had already chosen its path. One night in the black above Jupiter, the Juggernaut left hiding. Its engines flared like suns, its weapons gleamed in silence, and its shadow stretched across the stars. No longer secret, no longer rumor. It was real. For the first time, the galaxy looked upon humanity and felt something they had never felt before. Not pity, not amusement, but fear, and this was only the beginning. The galaxy could no longer ignore the whispers. The image of a dark, patchwork warship larger than any fleet cruiser had reached every council chamber. Some dismissed it as a trick, others as human propaganda, but deep down, fear gnawed at them. What if the stories were true? The Empire decided to end the question. They gathered a fleet, 1,000 ships of every shape and design, sleek destroyers, heavy cruisers, carriers bristling with fighters. It was a force that had crushed rebellions across the stars. To them, humanity's so-called Juggernaut was only a curiosity, a scarecrow built from junk. They would destroy it in one strike and remind the galaxy who ruled the stars. The order was given. The fleet sailed for the Sol system, but humanity was waiting. On the dark edge of space, near the rings of Saturn, the Juggernaut moved into position. Its shadow slid across the ice, massive and terrifying. Inside, the crew stood ready, every hand steady on controls, every heart pounding with fire. The captain spoke only one sentence. "Today, we show them who we are." The first battle began in silence. Alien ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, filling the void with their gleaming hulls. They outnumbered the Juggernaut 100 to 1. Their commanders laughed. One scrap ship against an empire. This will be over in minutes. They were wrong. The aliens fired first. Beams of plasma cut across the black. Missiles streaked like fireflies. Torpedoes burned with deadly light. The Juggernaut did not dodge. It did not retreat. It stood in the storm. When the blasts hit, the ship shook, but its patchwork armor held. Human steel and alien fragments fused together, refused to break. Sparks flew, but the ship growled back, alive and angry. Then the Juggernaut answered. Railguns thundered, hurling spears of metal at impossible speed. Whole cruisers split apart as if struck by gods. Plasma cannons roared, melting destroyers into molten wrecks. Fighters tried to swarm, but the Juggernaut's guns tore them down faster than they could scream. The void became fire. Aliens shouted in confusion. It should not be possible. That ship should not even fly. But it did more than fly. It hunted. The Juggernaut moved with unnatural speed, twisting its bulk like a predator in water. It rammed through one battleship, cutting it in half with its sheer weight. It spun and fired broadside cannons, shredding a cluster of frigates into drifting ash. For every shot that struck the Juggernaut, it answered with 10. For every ship destroyed, the monster grew stronger in legend. The battle raged for hours. The Empire's 1,000 ships became hundreds, then dozens. Commanders screamed orders, but fear spread faster than fire. Their fleets were breaking. One alien admiral tried to rally his forces. "It is only one ship, but his words died when the Juggernaut turned its massive cannons on his flagship. A single beam tore through his vessel, carving it apart like paper. His ship exploded, lighting the void with a fire that silenced all hope. By the time the smoke cleared, the truth was undeniable. The Juggernaut still stood, alone, scarred but unbroken. Around it drifted the wreckage of the Empire's proudest fleet, thousands of ships reduced to burning debris. Inside the command deck, the crew sat in silence. They were exhausted, bruised, but alive. The captain's voice was calm, almost cold. "Send the message." Across the stars, humanity's words were broadcast. "You gave us scrap. We forged a weapon. You called us weak. We stood unbroken. Never again will you mock humanity." The message struck harder than any weapon. In council chambers, alien rulers sat pale and speechless. On colonies, people whispered the name of the ship as if it were a myth, Juggernaut. The warship that turned fire into victory. Some feared it. Some admired it. But none could deny it. Humanity was no longer a child race. They had shown that from broken things they could build power greater than empires. The galaxy trembled, and yet humanity knew the battle was not the end. The Empire had more fleets, more weapons, more hate. The Juggernaut was strong, but the war was just beginning. Still on that day, in the silent wreckage of Saturn's rings, one truth burned brighter than the stars. The galaxy had laughed, but now the galaxy feared. The battle near Saturn had ended, but its echoes spread across the stars. Wreckage drifted in silence, the corpses of 1,000 alien warships floating like broken monuments. And at the heart of it all, the Juggernaut moved through the ruins, alive and unbroken, its shadow larger than the fleets it had destroyed. The galaxy had mocked humanity. Now it trembled. News traveled faster than light. On distant colonies, traders whispered of a single human warship that had crushed the Empire's might. On frontier worlds, alien captains swore they saw the monster drifting like a storm, its weapons still glowing, its hull covered in scars that only made it more terrifying. Some called it a miracle. Others called it madness. But everyone knew one thing. The Juggernaut was real. In the grand halls of the Galactic Council, the rulers of ancient civilizations argued in fear. Some demanded immediate retaliation, others wanted peace talks. But none could erase the truth. They had given humanity garbage, and humanity had turned it into a god of war. The Empire tried to hide its shame. Official messages claimed the fleet had suffered an accident. They said the Juggernaut was only a myth, a trick to frighten children. But the survivors of the battle told a different story. They spoke of a ship that moved like a predator, that ripped apart whole cruisers with claws of steel, that burned brighter than any fleet fire they had ever seen. The galaxy listened to them, not the Empire. Meanwhile, humanity stood taller than ever before. On Earth, crowds filled the streets, staring at screens that showed only one image. The Juggernaut drifting among stars, scarred but undefeated. Children pointed and whispered that they wanted to serve aboard it one day. Old veterans wiped their eyes, whispering, "At last they see us." But inside human command centers, the mood was colder. Admirals studied maps of enemy fleets. Scientists spoke of improvements to weapons, stronger armor, faster engines. The Juggernaut was not just a ship now, it was a symbol. And symbols must never fall. In orbit above a dead moon, the Juggernaut prepared for its next mission. The crew, weary from battle, walked its halls with quiet pride. Every scorch mark on its armor told a story of survival. Every welded seam reminded them that they had built this monster with their own hands, with their own sweat, with their own fury. The captain stood before them and spoke. They gave us scrap to break us. Instead, we forged a weapon to remind them. Humanity is not weak. Humanity endures. And as long as this ship sails, the galaxy will never forget. The crew answered with silence, not because they doubted, but because words were too small for what they felt. And then came the broadcast. For the first time, humanity spoke to the galaxy not as a child, but as an equal, perhaps even greater. The message was short, carried on every frequency, translated into every tongue. You laughed at us. You gave us your trash. From that, we built power you cannot stop. Remember this, humanity does not need your gifts. We build our own destiny. The message struck like lightning. On alien worlds, silence followed. No one laughed. No one dared. From that day forward, the Juggernaut was no longer just a warship. It became a shadow in the minds of rulers, a nightmare in the dreams of admirals. Empires planned their wars carefully, always asking the same question: what if the Juggernaut is there? Merchants carried its legend across the stars. Soldiers told stories around fires of the ship made from bones of 1,000 dead fleets. Children on distant colonies drew its shape in the sand, pretending they were its crew. And in secret places, whispers grew darker. If humans could build this from junk, some asked, what will they build next? The galaxy had given them nothing. Humanity had turned it into everything. The stars themselves seemed to listen. From junk to Juggernaut, from insult to terror, humanity had taken its place in the galactic order. Not by begging, not by bowing, but by building, by enduring, by refusing to break. And though the war was not over, though more fleets would come, though the Empire would never forgive, one truth now burned forever. The galaxy had once laughed at humanity. Now it dared not even whisper.